1993 Space Machine, a game that was redesigned and released after being found in a basement 20 years after its initial development. So let's talk about it. Let's start with the name. 1993 Space Machine was made in 2006, but according to the Wikipedia page, it was originally planned for release as Shenandoah, Daughter of the Stars on the Amiga back in 1993. According to Polygon, the game contains the same level design, story, and art design as Shenandoah did, and it still hews to the limitations of the Amiga hardware. No more than 32 colors per screen, and a cap on the amount of objects on screen at once. I've seen other people refer to this as a bullet hell game, and I'm not sure if I'm seeing it. This is not bullet hell to me. Sure, there are quite a few bullets on screen at a time sometimes, but those types of games usually have a much smaller surface area for being hit and rely on very precise movements. Simply having a lot of bullets on screen at one time doesn't make it synonymous with the bullet hell genre. If you're a fan of old school shmups, but not a fan of anime-styled bullet hell games, you'll like the gameplay. The game can be challenging, but it doesn't become too frustrating. The pacing of the game is one of the best things about it. The challenge is well balanced. I think I died somewhere around 60 times during my first completion. I didn't keep track, but it was somewhere around there. This was over the course of 3 hours, and during that time, I did manage to get bored sometimes, so each of my play sessions were short, but it is a good casual game. The difficulty is just right in my opinion. Not too easy, but also not completely soul-crushing. However, once you get more power-ups, the game becomes much easier. You collect money as you play and spend that money on the power-ups. You can buy different spaceships and power-ups, and some power-ups only work on larger spaceships, and I really like games where I can upgrade my spaceship or character. However, if you die, you lose all the money you collected since the last time you entered the shop. So if you made mistakes on your selections, after you die over and over again, the game doesn't become easier. You gotta fight your way through until you win. Over half my deaths were probably from a single boss in the game that it took way too long to beat. And if I would have had better weaponry, I would have killed it much easier. So I think it would have been better if you didn't lose your money when you died. But with so few levels, the game would have been over too fast if this was the case. So I can see why it was set up this way. They could have increased the challenge and simply made it so you got to collect the money, then you could build your character and your ships and your weapons, and then everything would be easier as you progressed. Now back to reading about ship descriptions. Some ships are smaller than others, so they can move through tight spaces, while others are faster or have better shields. But the descriptions really don't clarify this, since each description is almost exactly the same as every other one. Many newer games would have had a stats sidebar indicating speed, size, shield, etc. Also, the weapon descriptions don't make much sense. You have no idea what they do. I would have liked to see a demo of each weapon. Like when you select a weapon, you can see how it fires in the lower left corner of the screen with something shooting out from your spaceship, just showing you exactly what it does. Instead, you must rely entirely on the explanation from one or two short sentences that don't mean much. I really like the grand selection of weapons and ships, but if you don't know what they're actually doing, you've got to choose through trial and error. But if you sell items back, they sell for less than what you would have paid, so there's no room for experimentation. The music is okay, but somewhat bland. Some tracks are better than others, and the sound effects are exactly what you would expect from a video game from the 1990s. The game has checkpoints and unlimited lives, and it keeps track of the number of times you die. It's not particularly hard since you can try over and over again and the screen is clear. It's clear to see what's an enemy and what's not. It's clear to see when bullets are coming at you most of the time. Many shmups nowadays have way too much going on that you can't even tell what's going to kill you, what's a power-up, what's an enemy, what's a bullet. However, sometimes you might get hit in this game and not know what it was that actually hit you. I had that happen a few times. I imagine this would be pretty fun with co-op, but I never tried it. The keyboard mapping for single player can't be remapped, but I was going to use a Steam controller, so I simply mapped that to the keyboard. I tried mapping as if it was a Steam controller as an Xbox controller, but the game really wanted me to plug in an Xbox controller for multiplayer, and I didn't have one of those handy to test out the co-op. The game doesn't have much replayability though. After playing it for 2 or 3 hours and beating the game, there's little reason to go back. And even playing co-op, there would be no reason to go back and play it again after you beat it. There is a hardcore mode where you only get 3 lives and no shield, and it certainly is much more challenging. The risk of starting all over again does make it more fun to me, but after powering up your ship, you don't want to go all the way back to your puny ship if you lose. Also, like I said, there's still some cheap kills, so unlimited lives seems fair since you go back to where you started. Too many shmups out there will make you start over from the very beginning when you die. Okay, that's not too bad, but unlimited continues would be better. Even worse, the arcade shmups will try to be exactly like the arcade. So every time you continue, it's like popping in a quarter. So you start exactly where you left off and you have unlimited lives. I really dislike this since you might as well be completely invincible, and it completely ruins the fun of the game. Game developers, please stop doing this. Make it a real game, please. You can have a classic arcade mode that is exactly like the arcade machine, but make the main game with some kind of challenge. Infinite lives aren't fun. This game fixes that problem. You have unlimited continues, which is great, and if you continue, you start back at a checkpoint, which is also great. But a shame of the game is that it has way too few levels, and after you finish the game, you're super powered, and going back doesn't seem as fun. Plus, I'm not even sure if I'm missing anything, but if you go back to one of the earlier stages after you've beaten the game, it simply starts you out at the final level of that stage. So after beating the game, you only have 5 stages from which to choose. Therefore, there's no point in ever really maxing out your ship because you can never play the earlier stages again. I also don't want to be forced to watch a bunch of cutscenes. 1993 Space Machine has very minimal dialogue, and it jumps right into the action by placing this dialogue at the bottom of the screen while you're actually playing the game. At the moment though, the price is too high. It would be good for a couple of bucks, but it lacks the replayability even if you want to try it on hardcore mode. So have you tried this game? Did you like it? What did you think about it? Leave a comment below and let me know. Thank you for watching.